another live stream. How is everyone doing? How is everyone doing? What is happening in your life? In life, the world is going crazy, but are you getting on the water? Are you getting on on the water? I'm just gonna make sure this is shared in the Facebook group. Load up the chat here. We've got we've got a pretty busy um we are live. We've got a pretty busy bit of coaching to get through. And then I'm going to look at the heats from Chile from the World Cup. So, should be a good, solid live stream. If you're joining us, say hello in the chat. We're a little bit late. Sorry for that. Um, yeah, I'm kind of exhausted on my side. Life with a baby, new baby, which is good, but also exhausting. And uh, yeah, I miss the ocean. I miss getting in the water. When I'm on Maui, I'm in the water. Maybe not every day, but very often. And here at the moment, uh, I'm not, and that's fine. It's part of the seasons, like I talked about last time. But also, I'm definitely starting to miss it, and looking forward to getting on the water again. One of my first big trips is going to be the Masterclass in Morocco, which there is still some space in week 2 if you're looking to sign up. Trying to get this camera, my cable here is in the way. Hold on. Hold on. All right, so there still is space in Morocco if you do want to join. You can do that on windsurfingmasterclass.com. We've got some people in the chat. We got Jorg. Hello, Jorg. He had 2 light wind freestyle sessions in the south of Sweden. Jorg, man, you are a legend. I love that you're always getting on the water. We've got Ragnar. I hope you're good as well. We're good adjusting to 3 kids and a little baby. But yeah, we're good. Tired. I did not sleep well last night, but it was Sunday, so at least I was able to sleep in a bit. Dennis, good to see you. You had a good flat water session, but you missed the waves because your clutch died. That sounds terrible. I'm sorry. We got Derek, good session. Lots of fun. Awesome. We got Harold as well, but he's got, even though there's no water days, he's got a good forecast. We've got Suna as well. I hope you get a solid week. Maybe I'll see you in Handsome. I don't know. It might be too early for me to go on a windsurfing trip. Again, we've got little baby at home, 3 weeks old today. And so that's been really the focus of my month. But I would love to go. I'd love to see you. I'd love to sail in Handsome. So let me know if the forecast holds and it still looks good. You've got my phone number. Send me a message. I mean, I'll check the forecast myself, but let me know what you're doing. Would be great to see you and decompress. I know Suna, you must be having a crazy time these days, and I hope that you're good, and I hope you get a solid handsome session to unwind. Dom in the chat, and Axel as well. Salom. All right, let's get the Facebook coaching loaded up. And then, like I said, we're going to go through the Facebook coaching and then go through the heat from Chile. We did that last weekend. And yeah, that was cool. That was really cool. I enjoyed that. You guys seem to enjoy it. We're going to do more of it. All right, we've got Thomas Svensson sharing some classic windsurfing. Look at this. This is hilarious. Look at this. Look at this. Look at this. Um, can I make that full screen? Yeah, look at that. We're not going to watch this whole video. This is a 30-minute video. But look at this. Gosh, how far we have come. But I think Thomas's point is that some of the theory or technique used here is relevant today, especially having the harness down on the hips. Thomas is a big fan of the hip harness that he invented, and getting the harness down on the femurs, where the femur meets um, the seat bones, I believe, like the trochanter, I think. Anyway, I've tried it. I've tested the harness, and yeah, it definitely is very efficient, easier, I think, for sailing around. It wasn't enough of a difference for me, but I don't have back pains. I've got a pretty muscly back. I don't have issues controlling the rig or the sail. So it wasn't for me, but I could see it being useful for someone else. And that's getting the harness really low, down on the hips. Um, this is a funny old windsurfing clip. Look at this, all of this old style. Yeah, cool. I love seeing old stuff, classics. All right, we got some more. We got a post from Mateo, pretty good post from Mateo. Oh, let me catch up on the comments. So Axel says, 2 sessions with massive waves and port tack winds. Whoa, I didn't even know that could happen in Morocco. Graham went to Platboom but decided against it and watched the masts break. Pros out, 3 masts broken. Funny, funny. Yeah, Cape Town. I'm not in Cape Town this year. I love it there. What a wonderful spot you guys have. All right, so here we've got a post from Mateo. He says, finally, we scored some sessions last week in Sardinia, southeast wind. Very rare for me to surf left waves. What can he improve? The first video, how to push harder on the rails without losing control and to create more spray. Second, he almost lost control in the first turn and definitely lost the wave in the second. What is he doing wrong? All right, so some very clear questions. Thank you for posting. Let's make this full screen. Oh, why do those sometimes go full screen and sometimes not? It really bugs me. Come on, there we go. There we go. Full screen. Here we go. Can we make it higher quality? Why is it like itty bitty quality? All right, let's try this. So, got a winger setting up. Okay, looking down the wave, looking down the wave. I'm going to watch this once real speed, and then we're going to go back through it frame by frame. Looks a little bit tricky in the conditions. Like the wave is really backing off. So it looked like it was going to break and then totally didn't break. Now it looks like it's steeping it up. Whoa, that was a nice section and a beautiful turn. Look at that turn. I love that turn. Whew. I love that turn. I love that turn. Let's watch this again. All right. So setting up, setting up, setting up, trying to decide when to go, decide when to go. And so, if I remember correctly in Mateo's comment, he says that he feels like he loses the wave on this first turn. He wants to be more on the rail and get more spray. I understand the sentiment, but also it's really difficult because what we can see happening here is that as he's going up the wave and it looks from the top like it's about to break, it actually backs off and doesn't break at all. And one of the things that I say over and over again on these live streams in the master classes is that you don't get that much information actually from the top of the wave. You get more information from the bottom of the wave. And so this is a really good example of that. So you can see the top of the wave. We've got some white water fluffing up on the top. It looks like it's going to break. But if we get a view of the face of the wave, it's not smooth. Look at it. It's all choppy and it's not in a bowl shape. It's more like in a just a straight line angle. And if we look at the bottom of the wave, it's not smooth. It's not, you don't get that nice C-shaped bowl. And that means that there isn't that power in the wave. There isn't that surface tension to smoothen it out, which means that it's not ready to break. And so it's teasing you. It's just a tease. It's teasing you. It makes it look like it's going to break, but it's not. And we can see that if we're looking at the bottom of the wave. Now, I'm going to give you some tips on what to do if you still go for the cutback, how to make it better. But first, let's watch what happens here. So now the wave's a little bit later. Look how much smoother this is, and look what's happening at the bottom of the wave. The bottom of the wave is getting progressively smoother and more of a bowl shape, of a C shape, like a skate ramp, right? Like a pool, rather than like a straight line. So you can see that you have this form in the wave. So like, look how different this part of the wave looks compared to this one here, right? That he's turning up. And so like this this wave at this point is super choppy, not clean at all, and it's not steep at all, which is a sign that it doesn't have much power. So, like even here, after Mateo's done the turn, the wave is still not steep. It's super choppy, and if we go back to this section, we look at what's happening here. The wave is way steeper. It's a wall. It's a lot smoother. And that means there's a power source. And this is what you want to look for. And so ideally, you don't want to get tricked by these early sections that are teasing you. And you want to go for these walls. And then you can see that the wall is there. I like the technique that's going on, right? Like we're getting forward in the bottom turn, a little bit back footed, but still nice. Getting this S shape with the front arm, which we talk about in the cutback. Really getting the butt low and on the heels here, and really driving that cutback on the rail. Beautiful turn. I really like this turn. I've got no notes other than that. I love it. So what do we want to do on this first turn? So again, the main issue is the wave is not setting up. But what can we do in that situation to save a turn like this? And actually, the lesson is in that second turn, and it looks like you're kind of trying to do it, and it's getting the butt really low and staying on the heels. And so getting the butt low, staying on the heels, but you're kind of bringing the butt up a little bit early. Now, you might be doing that because you realize that the timing is off and you're trying to time the next section correctly. And you realize, oh, shoot, now because that timing was off, I need to get upright, I need to get going, and I need to start getting to that next section of wave in order to make that work. I don't want to mess up that section. Though it does look like you have time. So you could have really got the butt low and really sat down on that heel and carved more of a cutback on that first section. But really, the issue is a lot less about technique and um, a lot more about just the wave placement. And that's a recurring theme. You know, I'm always talking about the fundamentals. So this is the next wave. Let's see what happens here. So coming up, this is a very different kind of wave. It looks like a lot less power. It's more like that first section that we saw in the other wave. So if you look at this turn, coming up, you're hitting this white water, and then boom, the wave disappears. And so when the wave disappears like this, it means that the power is also disappearing. So you can see the wave went from looking like it was broken to not broken at all. And then it starts to form up again and break. And maybe it's breaking for real this time. Maybe not. Again, look, the wave is dancing up and it actually hasn't broken. So it means that there's an issue going on with the bottom or the tide. There's something going on where the wave isn't actually breaking. It looks like it is, and maybe technically it is breaking, but not in the way that you want to ride it. And so this is kind of tricky because it does look like it is getting steep in this section. So I think that you're putting a lot of force in, Mateo, because it looks like it's steep. It looks like it's smooth. All the signs, like I said, to look for. But then the power is disappearing really quickly. And that seems to be more an issue of the spot. And maybe there's a place to ride more upwind or more downwind where that doesn't happen. And then you want to avoid this area. Or maybe it's tidal. Maybe once the tide starts getting higher, then this happens. That's common in some places. But let's move on from the fundamentals, which really are the most important part, and instead talk about the technique. So this first turn, you're coming up, getting that high five, throwing the tail. It's fine. You do a good recovery. I don't have a lot of notes for this turn. This is fine. This is fine. All right, coming up second turn. So here, I think you do a lot better, like with the other turns, really getting your butt low and not pulling in on the sail too much. So here, your butt is actually pushing up. You're not really hanging the butt low, and you're pulling the sail into you. And that makes it hard to stay on the rail. So if we look at the other wave, so if we look at this first wave, let's get to it. With this beautiful turn that I loved, and look at what's going on. The butt is really low. Like look how low the butt is and how far you are from the sail. So you're not pulling into the sail. You're allowing a lot of distance between you and the sail. So your body is low, close to the wave. The sail is flying high, and that allows you to do this beautiful carve. And then at the end of the carve, yeah, you do a little sheet in. Now let's contrast that to this other wave. And, ooh, our quality dropped. Let's get our quality back up. Let's contrast this to the other wave. And we can see that you're pulling the sail into your body. So see this, how different that is? We don't want to be doing that. We almost never want to be doing that. And so that's the main technical difference. So there are some differences as well, in terms of what the wave is doing, and then therefore what is possible. Like this section has a lot less power than that other section. But there's a main technical difference that you're doing here, and that's pulling the sail into you and then pushing the hips in. And so what you want to do is what you're doing on the other turn, which is put the keep the butt low, and I think of it sort of hanging from the sail, but what you don't want to do is pull the sail to you. So however you can think about that. I know some people don't like the feeling of hanging from the sail, but basically you want your arms pretty straight. You're not pulling the sail towards you. You're letting the sail fly. You're trying to get low and on your heels to carve. Let's see if this quality will improve. I don't know why. Yeah, there we go. So see how much distance there is with the sail. Distance with the sail. And butt is low, distance from the sail, and that allows this beautiful carve and you to keep your speed. And if you pull in the sail, it disrupts all of that. So kind of simple in terms of the technique. And Matteo, you can do it. So it's just a matter of being aware of those differences and then doing what you're doing in the first clip. But beautiful sailing. And again, it's a lot to do with what the wave is doing. A lot to do with what the wave is doing. All right, we got some people in the chat. We got CBR, hello, thumbs up. We got Greg as well. Greg says he had a surprise session on his ancestral lake Balaton in Hungary. Whoa. And then tack practice in Wales on Wednesday. I love it. I love the enthusiasm. I love it. All right, next up, we got a question from Bart. He's going to be in Tenerife the 26th of April to the 3rd of May. Who else is going to be in the group? Great question. Great question. Who is going to be there? So I'm trying to get this more seen. I don't know why. I think Facebook changed something with their algorithm and the posts get seen by fewer people. I don't know why, but we've got whatever 6,500 people in the group, and this post is only seen by 142 people. Maybe people are not on Facebook. I'm not sure, but I'm trying to get some exposure for Bart. If you're going to Tenerife, let him know. All right, Mike says thank you for this. Well, you're welcome. He's 60, 75 kilos, and he started windsurfing again 2 years ago after a 30-year break. Wow. And he sails on an 82-liter freewave board in the gorge. Awesome. He's presently on Maui, and he selected an 89 board for the Fast Tack Masterclass. And the extra float of the board, he's now making 3 out of 10 tacks. Awesome. Help him stay upwind, catch more wave, and help maintain speed heading out through the impact zone. Awesome. Wondering the group's thoughts on upsizing the board for learning progression. Yes, this is a really good point. It's something that I don't talk about much, and I haven't heard other people talk about much as well. For learning certain moves like tacks or heli tacks or jibes or some of these freestyle moves, going on a bigger board makes it easier to balance. You can learn the technique and then bring it to a smaller board. It is a great strategy, and I recommend it full-heartedly. Second question. Bottom turning. He watched a 2020 video of mine where I discussed pushing against a wall, bending butt out, hip square, sliding the backhand way back. His problem is that with the first bottom turn, when he pulls in with his backhand, there's so much power transferred to my front hand, it almost pulls me off the rail. Am I leaning over enough, going too slow, or just too weak? Okay, so first, yes, big boards are great for learning. Totally recommend. All right, 2. If you're getting pulled over when you're sheeting in, then forget about sheeting in. just focus on sheeting out and pushing the sail away from you and leaning over the center line of the board. You don't actually have to really sheet in to do a good bottom turn, though it helps. But often when we're learning, that sheeting in can get in the way, and that sounds like is the case here. Because sometimes when you sheet in, especially if you're not used to it, because if you think of that motion, I'm not sure what you guys can see of my body. I think we're pretty zoomed in here. But if you think of sheeting in, it's the opposite of leaning forward, right? And so sometimes you sheet in and you pull everything back because you're using your body, and then that loads up the sail and it loads up the front hand, and then you're fighting it and you're not in a good position. And instead, what you can do is just, you still want the wide grip, but then you just push everything away from you. You get all your hands out and lean forward over the center line of the board, and you can still do a really good bottom turn that way. And then you start incorporating the sheeting in later. But getting over the center line of the board is really, really important. So you want to sheet out to make sure that you can do that. All right, so we've got some questions. All right. Kevin says he will have questions next week. Okay. Mateo says down the line conditions is better to have a big sail with a small board or a small sail with a big board. Hans says small sail with big board, exclamation point. Down the line sail always gets more power due to the apparent wind. Yeah, I'm inclined to agree with Hans here. I think there are exceptions, and it depends on the board and it depends on the sails, because you don't want to go too big on your boards. But yeah, generally you want to go a bit more volume and smaller sail, because in down the line conditions there is more apparent wind. Your sail is going to have a lot of power, and so you don't want to have a big sail, and you need the board to float to help you get out. That is true a lot of the cases, but again, you don't want to go too big on the board that then you can't turn on the waves. So there is some happy medium there. Like I see some people on, they're not huge guys, but they're maybe on like, maybe they're 70 kilos and they're on like a 95-liter board and they're on a 3.7 sail. And I think that that's too extreme. I think that that's too extreme. And then the board is too big, and that really gets in the way of the performance. And it's better to be on, like, for example, an 80-liter board and a 4.5, and you're still, in this example, 10 liters more than your weight, but then it's a more balanced setup. So I don't think you should go too extreme. All right, Hans says, how do you compare tail widths? I found tail widths to be one of the most influential features of the waveboard shape. Agreed. The width of the tail is very important. With longer, shorter tails, measuring the 1 foot off seems unreliable. He had a conversation with Luca from Flicka, and he said that they use tail width at the rear strap plug. This makes a lot of sense. Shouldn't we use this number more often? Yeah, so Hans is hitting on a good point, which is that the traditional measure of measuring a board's tail width from the 12 inches from the tail of the board has some issues. The nice thing with it is that it's really easy to do, and it is then easy to compare other boards. But then Hans is making the point that it's not that easy to compare, because some boards you're standing right on the tail. It's almost like you chopped off the tail. And so it's a lot wider, but then you're standing on the tail. And then that 12-inch measurement isn't necessarily fair, because maybe where your foot strap um, is the same width as the other board, but then the other board just has a lot more behind it. And I think that that's a good point, and I think it probably does make more sense to look at the width where your foot is, where your back foot is. But what I will caution is that difference, like whether the tail is chopped off or not, makes a huge difference for how the board feels. And so you can have a board that is, the same width at the foot strap, but the board ends right at that back foot strap, and the other, the board continues a little bit. Those boards are going to feel very, very different. So we solve one problem, but then open up another one. Um, and I think the takeaway is that there isn't one magic measurement. And in fact, while measurements matter, it's the like amalgamation of everything that's really important. And so looking at just width or tail width or length or leaderage doesn't tell the whole story of the board. And the boards, there's a certain magic to it. It can't be reduced just to numbers. It can't be reduced just to numbers. And so I think probably both of these measurements are really important. And so rather than one or the other, looking at both of them as well as the other aspects of the board as well, like the bottom shape of the board is really important. Is it a V bottom? Is it a double concave? Is it a single concave? What's going on with the bottom? That's going to matter a lot as well. But very good point. I love thinking about these sort of technical issues. All right. So next up, Mario. Mario is coming back from a pretty big injury. He had the Liz Frank injury, and he's been doing a lot of cross training, and I'm really proud of how hard he's working here. He found this app for, I don't know what this is. Let's look at it. Um, let's see. Movement analysis made easy. All right. Yeah, I'm not sure. Interesting. I wonder if this is done with AI. Yeah, AI joint tracking. Interesting. Yeah, interesting. Really interesting. I'm not sure. I don't have experience with these. Super interesting. I wonder what Cedric thinks. So, Cedric is our sports scientist in the group, and I always like to get his opinion on stuff like this. Seems really cool. One of the things that is so important and so overlooked when it comes to cross training is form. The form that you're doing your exercises is so important, and it's more important than the reps. It's more important than anything else, because if your form is bad, then you can be risking injury. You might not actually be doing the work that the exercise is supposed to be doing. There's so many issues. So form is hugely important. And I've been talking to Cedric about developing a windsurfing training program. That's what we were going to do as well in Portugal, which looks like it's not going to happen because not enough people signed up for it, which is fine. We're still going to work on creating a windsurfing program. And one of the key things in that program is helping people get their form right when they're doing their cross training exercises. Because again, if you're doing it incorrectly, you can risk injury, or you're not doing the work that needs to be done. All right. Hans followed up. He says, what does he say? Yep, agreed. Tail length is definitely a factor, but tail width is just often not mentioned at all in general. Yeah. Yeah, definitely. All right. So Dennis. So Dennis, I love Dennis's journey. Dennis has been with us, I think, I don't know about since day one, but very early in the Windsurfing Masterclass journey in this Facebook community. He says this is a follow up to his previous post. His two common issues are when he tries to tighten the second half of the bottom turn, he bogs down the rail and crashes. And he hits the peak with too much power. He ends up in some sort of half-baked aerial and crash. Besides those techniques, he sometimes wonder if his board is too big. This is a Quattro Cube 95, and he's 84 kilos. If the waves are big enough and the wind is consistent, it might be a bit bulky. It's a little bit on the big side, but it's not. I would say that within 10 liters of your weight is a pretty good range for your main board. And so this is on the upper limit of that. But it's within the range, right? It's on the upper limit though. So you could have something that's more like 88, 89 liters, which might feel more responsive. But then the trade-off is that it can be harder to get out and get around if you have a lot of current, gusty, tricky conditions. So yes, but also there are trade-offs. So let's watch the footage. Here, we've got to oopsie, oopsie. Where do we all go? Sorry guys. Sometimes this happens where my window just disappears, and I don't know where it went. Uh, so hold on, hold on. I gotta find my window. Okay, here we go. Found it. All right. I don't know why it does that. Sometimes it just disappears. All right, I found it. Let's go. Here we go. All right. All right, all right. Now, let's go full screen. Make sure our quality is high as it'll go. And let's watch this. So, here we go. Setting up for the turn. I like seeing the hip bend. I like it. I like it. I like it. That's something that comes up a lot. Dennis is getting low before he goes. All right, going into the turn and then bogging the rail and boom, falling. All right, so let's see what's happening here. My first instinct is that you're loading too much on the back foot, and then that's what's causing this issue. With a smaller board, it might be that it would transfer, that pressure would transfer into the rail, and you would not have this issue. I think what so there's two things that I want to mention in terms of technique. The first is where your hips are pointing. So as we get into the turn, your hips are pointing kind of in this direction. What you can think about is getting those hips pointed towards the toes. So you're rotating those hips, in this case, to the left. So the hips are facing the knees are facing the toes. So hips to the knees to the toes. And that will create a lot more equal pressure uh, between your feet. I'm inclined to say that that one thing is enough, and that's going to make a big difference here. So it's making sure as you go into the turn and you're doing your get low before you go, which you're doing a great job of, you keep those hips pointed towards your toes and even aggressively and actively rotate them more in that direction. So the hips are really rotated towards the toes into the turn. And I think that's actually going to fix the issue. The second thing is really pushing the sail away. So here you're really pulling the sail in, which also creates an issue. But I think you're doing that to recover. I think actually the issue is with the hips. I think if you get the hips on the pointed into the turn, pointed towards the toes, you're not going to have the issues that you have. Then you have to pull the sail into. We got Dan in Klipmuller. Spring is here. Next Friday looks solid. Awesome. Maybe I'll join. Let's see. Let's see. All right, let's watch the second clip. So Dennis, I think you're still in the chat, and hopefully that makes sense. That hip thing really makes a big difference. Makes a big difference. All right, let's watch this one. So again, same thing. Like if we look at the direction of the hips, right? And so the hip thing, it's doing a couple things. The primary thing it's doing is it's distributing the load more equally with your feet. So this is something, if you're at home and you're watching the live stream, just stand up, get in your stance, point your hips as if they're pointing towards the nose of the board and see where your weight goes. And like if I'm doing this now, my weight goes to my back foot. I point my hips forward towards my toes, boom, I have more equal foot pressure. And this is going to make a big difference for the riding. And so again, Dennis, you can see like the direction that the hips are pointing. They're pointing very far forward, and it's a simple change. It's a little change with a big effect, and I love things like that. It's not something that's really hard to implement. It's just easy thing to implement, makes a big difference. But like you said, because the board is pretty big and it's maybe a little bit harder to turn, you're feeling like you do need to put more back foot pressure in order to make the board turn. And so that could be an issue there. But generally, getting the hips more pointed will make a big difference. So this one, you're a little bit late for this section, but I love that you're. Let's watch it full speed. But just to finish my thought, I love that you're hurrying up to get that high five. Um, Yeah, I love the enthusiasm. Something that I think we should all live by as wave sailors is we judge our sessions not by how many times we make it, but how many times we go for it. How many times we go for it. And so if you have a session where you're going for these heavy lips rather than turning away from them, and even if you crash on every one, that's a success because we're judging our sessions by how often we go for it, not by how often we don't fall. So judge your sessions how often you go for it, not how often you don't fall. Because windsurfing is not about not falling, right? It's about going for it. So I like this. Like I know you fall, but it's radical. You're hitting this section. You're getting a high five. You're getting a bit of air. I mean, look at this. Look at this little still photo. It looks like Jason Polikow, Ariel Hokipa, right? This is the same body position. Like we can find if I do a Google search for Jason Polikow aerials, there's going to be something that looks kind of like this. So I think this is sick. So how do we land it? The first step to landing it is just doing more of them, right? If you do a bunch of these, you're going to get more comfortable with it because you're pretty close to landing it. It's not like you're exploding on the landing or you're going all over the place, right? So getting that high five, loading here. So I guess there's two responses to this. So the first would be how to land this kind of aerial, this kind of move. So you do the exact same thing, and then okay, how are we landing it? And the other is okay, how do we make it so that something different happens when you hit the lip? And I'm going to answer the first question first because I really like these little aerials that you're doing. So I think up until this point, you're fine. But then there's a point where you need to kind of release. I'm not sure if I can find. Be great if I could find some footage to give you an example. So here you're sheeting in, right? Get the tweak, and then you're landing. But then you need to get your body under the boom again and under the sail. So instead of pushing the rig upwind, like completing the cutback, you want to think about your energy traveling down the line. And so you're not trying to get more complete than this, right? So you're landing like this, and then you're at this point you're trying to go down the line rather than back up. And so when you try to go back up, then you fall under it, and it's hard to come out of that again. So you want to think about keeping your energy going down the wave, and then also pulling the sail back a little bit and sheeting in. And so then like if you think about what you're doing when you do that, when you pull the sail back and you're sheeting in, it's pushing you more downwind, right? More down the line, which is what you want to do on this landing. So then you're not spinning in that cutback motion upwind, right? So you do that little aerial, but then you're sort of, you do the tweak, but then you're instead of pushing the front hand in the direction of the cutback upwind, you're sort of pushing it down the line, and you're sheeting in with that backhand to help keep the sail upright, so that then you can keep your energy going down um, down the line. But yeah, I love this. I mean, we can talk about what to do that this doesn't happen, but I think it looks really cool. I'm going to say quickly what to do so this doesn't happen, but then I want to go back to this and finding some examples of tweaked errors. So if you don't want to do this little aerial, what you want to do is keep your butt really low and hang more from the sail and not sheet in, and think of all of that energy on your heels, and then that will keep the connection with the wave, and it will transfer you around, and then you can do a really complete off the lip where you're then coming back upwind. And so it's just really getting super super low, super super low, and then you won't get that projection. But I wonder if I can find Connet 7 is a great resource. I've used this before. on the stream. Let's see if they have tweaked aerials. Tweaked air. Does that work? Let's see. Look at this. The first one is me. I didn't even know that. Can we make this full screen? All right, so this is me. Totally different conditions. I would like to find an example that's in more onshore conditions, but this will work for now. So this is me from a few years ago. Again, hitting the lip, throwing the tail. This is kind of similar, but the critical point, so we can see this, even though this is really different conditions. So here is kind of at the point, like I stopped the video with what you were doing. I said, yeah, up to this point, it's great. But now look what I'm doing. So so if we look early in the turn, everything's kind of pointing upwind in terms of the sail and the body. But then here, look, I'm pushing with the front hand and pulling in with the backhand to try to steer downwind so that I land going downwind. So that's exactly what I was trying to explain before. So we're not trying to complete a cutback in the air. It's more like we're doing the tweak, but then we're stopping the upwind energy and going downwind. So then you're sort of pushing with that front hand or pushing and kind of moving the sail back with the front hand and sheeting in order to get the sail to pull you upright and to pull you down the line. So you're not continuing that cutback on the landing, because then you slide and you're under the rig. So let's watch this one more time. So you can see there's kind of the push, but then I'm really fighting to get the sail, so it's pulling downwind and landing. Let's see if there's an onshore one. So here's one from Philip Coster. So here's one. This isn't more onshore conditions. Let's see what this looks like. So he's coming up. Different style of aerial, actually, this one. Mine was more similar to Dennis's. Philip is doing a lot of work to get his feet up above his head. It's not coming from the wave. But still not really completing the cutback in the air, but it's not quite what I want to show. So these, I'm guessing, let's watch one more, but I'm guessing these are more. Okay, so here's an example that's the opposite of what I said. This is very onshore. This is in Pozo, and he's really completing the cutback, like I was saying not to do. But you can see how difficult it is. And I don't even know if he makes this one. He has a very similar problem to what Dennis had, where then he's stuck under the sail, the fins are sliding, and then you've got to recover. So yeah, this is not really what I recommend. I wonder if we can find maybe something from Moritz, or let's see. We might not be able to find an example. Yeah, but I think you know what I mean. So try it. So you've got two really clear things to work on, Dennis, right? The hips in the bottom turn. This is going to make a world of difference. And then you have that what to think about with off the lips. Okay, so we got another post from Dennis. Awesome. Love the double post. Don't be afraid to post multiple times. It's great. If you get a lot of footage, you can do 2 posts. Love it. So, no chance to practice consistently the past months as not much wind. Shoot. He was in our Denmark Masterclass in 23. This clip is from 24. He had a few good sessions. Somehow he was able to implement what he learned in the Masterclass the year before on the same spot to engage in the bottom turn and generate some good speed, to move the hands from wide to narrow grip, to let the sail open before the top turn, to hit the peak and let the wave do the rest of the job. Yes, the trajectories are still wide and down the line. Next step would be tightening the second part of the bottom turn. It seems that there's a way to keep pressure on the rail and engage more in the turn that I didn't get so far. Maybe I'm still too much on the back foot. Yeah, interesting. So I think that this, without even watching it, just based on what you said, I think the hips, like we talked about, are going to be the answer here. So let's watch this and see if that is the case. Beautiful though. I love it. Right on. Ah, right on, Dennis. Boom. A lot. Look at the speed. So what am I looking at when I am making all these sounds of excitement? How Dennis is fitting his board into the wave, and then also the speed that he has in the bottom turns and out of the cutbacks. So the speed in the bottom turns and out of the cutbacks. So these, I love these. These are great clips. These are wins. If you want to improve, like you're saying about keeping that rail engagement, it's the next step is with the hips. And so instead of having the hips pointed towards the nose of the board, like they are here, like they're really aggressively pointed towards the nose of the board, you want your knees pointed towards your toes and your hips pointed towards your toes. And that's going to help with that rail engagement. But really nice job finding that high five section. And boom, look at that. Off the lip, little bit of spray, slide. I mean, this is a beautiful top turn. Boom, look at that. Look at the energy in that. The other thing that I like, and this is a really good lesson for everyone, is this little pump that Dennis does and then the wide grip. So that pump and the wide grip really is a good setup. He makes sure he's got speed going to the bottom turn and then also the wide grip. Again, the hip position, that's the biggest thing. Um, Good job finding the high fives. Good job with the energy. Good job with the speed. Good job keeping the sail open, right? Like the sail handling is really beautiful. Sail stays open. Boom, boom, boom. You're not sheeting in too much on the top turn. There's a ton of speed here. Dennis has done a bunch of our in-person master classes, been part of the Facebook group. It's so cool to see the journey from Dennis and everyone that's been in the master classes, been in this group, and we can see the improvement year to year. It's so cool to see. So the biggest thing is just those hips. Uh, so you don't want hips towards the nose. So you don't want the hips towards the nose. So you want your hips towards your. So what you are doing now is the hips towards the nose. You want the hips towards the um, hip towards your feet. So basically, you're turning your hips into the turn. Yeah. Does that make sense, Dennis? Let me know in the chat if that makes sense or not. All right, so next up, we've got a post from Juice, who's flying to Morocco and wants to implement my advice. He's looking for a camera. Yeah, what's a good camera? So maybe Axel wants to get involved. Different people have different suggestions. There's some good cameras in this range. Um, that's the lower part of the range, so you're not going to get a great camera. But the thing with the cameras for seeing yourself and improving is that they don't have to be a great camera. Even if you have like a phone, it's really better than nothing. So there are some Sonys that have a good optical zoom. You want to have something with a good optical zoom. Now, the smaller the sensor gets, the easier it is to have a good optical zoom. So some of the cheaper cameras do have really good long optical zooms, 20 times, 25 times. And you want something, I think, that's at least 20 times optical zoom. And then from there, you get the biggest sensor that you can. There's good reviews. I would just find something with a good optical zoom. And yeah. All right. So Chile World Cup is on. Yeah, so I'm going to talk about the final. Let me find it and we'll go through and we'll talk about the final. International Windsurfing Tour. All right, let's see. Chile World Cup. Videos. Live streams. All right, so this, I guess, is the final. Let's answer a question. Let's skip. All right. So, let's find the final here. Turn off the sound. Men's final heat 1. If there are other heats you guys want to talk about, let me know. We can talk about this um, really as much as you guys want. But for now, let's get to... Here we go. Okay, so this is Camille Jubon versus Mark versus Baptiste versus Brazinho. Now, I have not been following the event, so I don't know if this is the final, if there's another final, what the story is. Again, if you want to talk about another specific heat, let me know. Post it. Post your question. Post the timestamp. All right, here we go. So it looks like 26 minutes on the clock. No one's caught a wave. Here's the first wave. Who is this? This looks like Mark? Maybe? I'm not sure. Kind of a slidey wave. This is the replay. No, it is Baptiste. All right. Or this is a different wave. I'm not sure. That was hard to see. I don't like those slidey top turns. Yeah, I'm not sure what the judges think, but I'm not the big fan of those turns. This wave looks small-ish. It looks like it got a 3. Seems fair. Looks like Baptiste is getting another wave here. It looks super windy. The guys are jumping on the way out. Baptiste, like I said, is really one of my favorites from this generation, but I'm not a huge fan of those slidey turns, which is maybe more my personal preference, but I like more of a full rail carving turn. Yeah, I'm not sure what's going on there. Here's Mark throwing a goiter, beautiful goiter, boom, into another turn. Hopefully that scores high. All right. Let's see, it looks like... All right. Camille, oh, under the lip, gets a little bit caught up in the cutback and scared of the lip there. So apparently he had a broken toe, which you can really see in his shying away from the lip. You know, Camille's normally not one to shy away from the lip. Something else I want to point out here, let's just pause it, go back and pause it. Look how high his boom is. His boom is like at his head level. So Camille is one of the riders that rides a high boom. Look, it's above his head here. Yeah, he's bending his knees, but not that much. Really high boom, really high boom. Something we talk about. I like a low boom. A lot of other riders like a low boom. I encourage people to try a low boom, but most of all, I encourage people to experiment because it's really good to see what you like. Brazinho is more of like a middle height boom. You can see the boom is under his head. He's got way more knee bend than we saw in that clip from Camille. Beautiful top to bottom. That was so far of everything we've seen by far the best. Like to me, this is worlds apart from what we've seen. And what am I looking for to make that judgment? Very committed, powerful bottom turn. Look at him leaning into it on the rail, coming straight back up. Boom, boom, boom. There's a moment of disconnect, but comes straight up, straight down, keeps his speed, comes right into another turn. Looks like it goes into a tweaked area that we missed there from the camera. And looks like he also gets a goiter on that wave. So beautiful, beautiful wave. That is miles above anything else that we've seen so far in this final. So that could be, I'm not sure what score, but a lot higher than the other ones. Baptiste, just a little bit off. It looks like something's going on with his board. The way that the live stream is going, where they keep cutting off of people in the middle of their rides, is very annoying. So I'm not sure what happened in the rest of that. Looks like Mark got a 6 for his wave. Brazinho got a 7. We didn't see what Mark did at the beginning of his wave. We just saw the goiter. It looked like his goiters and Brazinho's goiters were comparable. Brazinho's first turns were amazing. I'm not sure if Mark also had similar turns. Oh, we've got an ad. Ay. We don't want an ad. Let's skip the ad. All right, let's get back into this. All right, I'm going to make it full screen again. Hopefully you guys can see it. If you need me to make my head smaller, let me know. Um, I'm a little bit annoyed. Again, I haven't watched. Ooh, beautiful goiter. Smaller inside section, but beautiful. Love that he goes right into another turn. All right, here's one of Camille that we already saw. So you can see he's a little bit scared, a little bit tentative. I don't know what they're doing with the cameras. I'm not doing that. This is from the live stream, and they're switching um, between waves, and it makes it really hard to see what's going on. Generally, it's good practice. You want to stay on one wave. Like here, they're jumping around. It'd be great if they had multiple cameras and they could show more than one rider in this four-man final. But if you can't, it's best to stick to one wave, and so we can see what's happening. This wave from Brasinho is a lot less good than what we saw earlier. The turns are a lot more disjointed, and he jibes off of it. But I have to say, a lot of action, which makes it hard for the camera guys. But again, they're just like switching and switching and switching. So we can't really see what's going on. Camille looks like his broken toe is really getting in the way. Pretty impressive that he's able to do this with a broken toe, but you can tell that he's not as aggressive as he normally is. He's not putting himself in the critical positions like he normally would. So here's a replay from Baptiste. There's a little bit more rail there. He's having trouble getting that cutback rail engaged. Like all of these, the cutbacks just doesn't really work that well. Goiter off the back, won't score that high. All right, let's see. Oh, again, another wave from Brasinho. Look at this. Again, beautiful. Bottom turn, carving up, carving cutback all the way through the turn, coming into another one. It's a little bit stuck there. Comes up, hits a goiter, lands it perfect in front of the wave. So when I'm looking at goiters and I'm judging them, I'm looking at how much of a bottom turn is done, how critical the section is that's being hit, and how far in front of the wave is he landing. He's landing very in front of the wave. That's cool. The bottom turn and the section were not that radical, but I mean, the section was good. I'm not trying to be critical. That was a beautiful, beautiful goiter. All right, let's see here. We've got Baptiste setting up again. Little aerial. Nice bottom turn, but the cutbacks, for some reason, he's having difficulty engaging that cutback rail, but nice aerial, critical aerial. Gets a turn on the whitewater. All right, do we have any more questions? Ask your questions in the chat. All right, let's see here. All right, so Mark coming for this section. Boom, big aerial. Can he get around the section? He can. Goes a little bit soft though. That wall doesn't set up for him for that second turn. But it steepens up here. Nice third turn. Beautiful. Comes up under it for an aerial. I love that quick transition. Beautiful. And goes for a goiter and lands it. That's going to be a good score. Good score. Then the wave doubles up. So I love this cutback, boom, right out of it into that aerial. So when I'm looking at other riders and judging their performance, if they're doing something like this where they're able to come out of a radical maneuver and then in a split second retransition into another one, that is something that I value very, very highly. Really, really nice performance from Mark. And we've got Brasinho out the back, tearing up a wave as well. Some good rail work. Let's see what he does. It looks like this wave is getting steeper on the inside. Trying to find that section. Tabletop aerial. I love tabletop aerials. Those feel so good. They look cool. And Camille is out the back. There's a lot of action in this final. This is hard to judge. It looks like the guys are on a wave every 30 seconds. Boom. Nice aerial there. Brasinho has a pretty solid lead. I expect Mark. Oh no, Mark is in the lead. Yeah, so they really rewarded that wave. All right, let's see what happens here. Whoa, goes for broke. So that, I don't know, the live stream kind of gets corrupted. Goes for something big, bails out. All right, let's see what happens here. Not much. Camille on another wave. Again, Camille's dealing with a broken toe. Some beautiful turns, though. There, it's a little bit better. Less slidey, more on the rail. The wave is walling up. Let's see what he can do here. Oh. No, not quite. Yeah, all right. Let's see. Here's another angle. You can see that he's just not able to do the kind of riding that we're used to seeing from Camille. Like, look, this is a section that he completely just goes around, which I can only guess that's because he's not feeling fully confident with his injury. Boom, goes for a goiter though, and doesn't pull it. All right, here we go, Baptiste. It's a little bit better, a little bit more on that cutback rail. Bottom turns are beautiful. I'm not a huge fan of these slides, but if you're going to do the slide, you got to go fully radical like he just did. Now the wave is starting to double up. It's starting to get some shape. It's a lot smaller, though, than some of these other waves. Boom, that was beautiful. I like that. I like that. He didn't land as far in front. So if we're judging goiters, like I said, I'm looking at how much bottom turn, I'm looking at how critical the lip is, and looking at how far in front he's landing. Look at this bottom turn. This is a fully committed bottom turn. Boom, boom, boom. So this is way more of a bottom turn than what Brasinho did on his goiter. And this section is also throwing way harder. But he's a little bit earlier on the section, even though it's a heavier section, and he lands on top. So how do you factor that all together? It's difficult, scoring these things is difficult. Goes for a whitewater taka and falls. But that was a much better wave from Baptiste. Let's see the replay. So like I said, when we saw this the first time, I don't really like these slidey turns, but if you're going to do the slidey turn, at least fully commit to it. And then let's see this goiter from this other angle. Solid bottom turn. He's a little bit off on the timing with the section. It's a heavier section, but he goes just a little bit too early. But nice. That should improve his scores, I would guess. All right, he's on another wave. Again, so many waves in this final. All right, there's Mark, but yeah, let's see. All right, here's another wave. Again from Baptiste, or is it the same one? Yeah, again, he's having difficulty engaging that cutback rail. I don't know why. I don't know if it's the conditions or if it's his board or just something going on with him. But it's either sliding or just not engaging. So then he's opting for more aerials. I don't know what's going on. And here we got Camille. Nice in the pocket riding. Beautiful. All right, let's see what happens here as the wave sets up. It's going to start to get heavier. Is he going to go for it this time? He's been shying away from that lip. Is he going to give it more as the heat is finishing? Beautiful rail work, though. But the wave is a little bit smaller, and goes for the goiter and doesn't make it. All right, here's another one. We're coming into the final 7 minutes of the heat. Here we go, Baptiste. What's going to happen? Lots of speed. Love the speed. Going a little bit later. So he realized he went too early last time and wants to get a more solid goiter. So again, beautiful bottom turn. Comes up a little bit later. Good section. Throws it hard. Still a little bit. I like to see more projection. He's not getting a lot of height. It's a little bit paunchy, but beautiful, and then just trips up on the landing. If he'd landed that, I think it would have really helped him. All right, let's see here. This is Camille's wave. I guess the one that we saw before. No, this is a different one. You can see that he's shying away from it. Camille's known for these huge late aerials, and here he's going early and small, and I think his foot is bothering him. All right, Brazinho is in second place, but don't count him out. Look at this. Beautiful wall comes up. Nice carving turn. I love the carving cutbacks. They're so hard to do and so fun. All right, this wave is a little bit softer, but it's going to start bowling up. There we go. All right, let's see what he can do here. Comes up, nice section, big goiter, and stomps it. I love to see it. And comes around, nice carve and cut back all the way back to the white water. And he's going to get another hit here, another section. Nope, he's going to jibe out. But that should be a solid score. I'm not sure where that's going to be, but it should better his other scores. Baptiste goes out the back. Yep, it does. And so he goes into the lead. All right, final 4 minutes here. Here's a replay from that wave from Brazinho. He's taking his time, really fitting himself into the power sources of the wave. He's not rushing ahead of the power. He's trying to stay where there's a power source. And then here's another view of this goiter. Radical section. Lands it solid. I love stuff like this. So again, not as committed in the bottom turn here as Baptiste was, right? He's a little bit more upright, a bit more telegraphed. He's going for the goiter, but big section, throws it. Yeah, goes over the section. Beautiful. All right, let's see. We're going to get a final wave in the last 2 minutes. Here we go, Baptiste. Baptiste has got a big section. Boom, go for broke. And nice wave from Mark. Baptiste goes for another goiter and falls. Final wave from Brazinho. Some beautiful rail work. He's in the lead. Nice. I don't know if this is going to better any of his other scores, but some nice rail work here. Go for another goiter. Lots of goiters in this heat, but crashes. And that's it. That's all she wrote. All right. Well, we've been streaming for over an hour, so I'm going to call it quits. If there is something from this event that you want to talk about, put in the time code, put it in the Facebook group, and I will talk about it next week, Sunday. I hope everyone has a wonderful week, and I will see you next week, Sunday. Remember to post your questions, comments, concerns, photos, videos, all of the above in the Facebook group. And